He doesn't even know he's raising my kids," her voice said on the tape I found the cassette hidden in our attic. I said nothing. 12 days later, she stood frozen at her biggest speech while a video played behind her. The suburban Oregon neighborhood we live in is the kind that gets featured in those best places to raise a family articles. Perfect lawns, community barbecues, neighbors who actually know each other's names. 11 years into my marriage with Marie, I'd convinced myself we had that picture-perfect life everyone dreams about. I'm a senior IT engineer at a cybersecurity firm. My wife is an executive assistant at Harriman & Pierce, one of the most prestigious law firms in Portland. We have our 5-year-old daughter Katie getting ready for kindergarten, and 1-year-old Brian, who just learned to walk, stumbling around the house with that determined toddler stride. From the outside, everything was ideal, but somewhere deep down there was always this strange emptiness. I couldn't name a quiet doubt that would occasionally whisper when I'd catch Marie looking through me, rather than at me. It was a late summer evening when everything changed. Katie was sprawled on the living room floor, playing with her Legos, while I sat on the couch reviewing her kindergarten enrollment paperwork. Marie was in the kitchen preparing dinner, humming some song I didn't recognize. The enrollment packet was typical contact information, immunization records, medical history. Then my eyes landed on a small box in the health information section. Blood type A. Something cold slithered down my spine. I stared at that letter, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. Type A. That couldn't be right. I distinctly remembered both our blood types from our annual blood drive at work last year. I'm B positive. Marie is O positive. Daddy, look at my castle. Katie's voice barely registered as my mind raced through high school biology. Blood type A from parents with B and O impossible. I mumbled something to Katie and practically sprinted to my home office, rifling through the filing cabinet until I found our medical records. There they were, the blood donor cards from last spring, mine showing B+ and Marie's showing O+. My hands were trembling as I pulled up a blood type inheritance chart online. I stared at the screen, the genetic impossibility confirming what I already knew. 2 parents with B and O blood types cannot produce a child with type A blood. My throat went dry. My heart hammered against my ribs like it was trying to escape. Could there be a mistake? I whispered to myself. Maybe Katie isn't Marie's child, but that was absurd. I had been there for the birth, watched Marie push our daughter into this world, which left only one possibility. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and escaped to the backyard. The summer twilight was settling in, stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. I sat on our patio furniture, feeling like a stranger in my own life. Everything I thought I knew, our marriage, our family, was suddenly suspect. Memories started flooding back, revealing patterns I'd been blind to. Our first year together had been passionate, almost obsessive. Marie made me feel like I was the center of her universe. But over time, things changed. Headaches became more frequent. She was often too tired. Our intimacy grew increasingly rare and mechanical. About 6 years ago, before Katie was born, I began noticing peculiar cycles in Marie's behavior. She'd come home late with vague explanations, immediately jumping into the shower. Then a few days later, she'd suddenly become intensely affectionate, initiating sex with an urgency that was unlike her normal behavior. These hot and cold phases would repeat roughly every 3 months. When I questioned her about these patterns, her answer was always dismissive. "I'm just stressed, Bill. Work is crazy right now." And like a fool, I believed her. My emotions cycled rapidly. Shock gave way to suspicion, which transformed into rage and finally settled into a cold, calculating resolve. I wouldn't confront her yet, not without evidence. If I accused her now, she'd just deny everything and I'd be left looking paranoid. No, I needed proof before I made my move. That night, I walked into our bedroom and found Marie cradling Brian in her arms, both of them peacefully asleep. They looked so innocent, so perfect. But as I stood there watching them, I realized my nightmare was just beginning, and I wouldn't wake up until I uncovered every last bit of the truth. I spent the next 3 nights researching, DNA testing while Marie slept beside me, her breathing steady and oblivious. The internet told me what I needed. A simple cheek swab would provide enough cells for paternity testing. I ordered supplies online through an anonymous account, making sure they arrived at my office instead of our home. One Wednesday night, after Marie had taken her usual sleeping pill and drifted off, I carefully entered our children's rooms with cotton swabs. Katie was sprawled across her bed, one arm wrapped around her stuffed giraffe. I gently swabbed the inside of her cheek, her breath warm against my hand. She stirred slightly, but didn't wake. In Brian's nursery, I did the same, my hands trembling as I collected cells from my baby boy's mouth. Finally, I took a sample from myself. I labeled them meticulously, M1 for me, K2 for Katie, B3 for Brian, and sealed them in sterile containers. The next morning, I overnighted the package to Jeff Donnelly, my college roommate who now worked as a geneticist at Portland University's Biomedical Research Lab. I told him it was for a personal matter and asked for complete discretion. He didn't ask questions, that's the kind of friend Jeff was. While waiting for the results, I began observing Marie with new eyes. Details I'd previously overlooked now screamed for attention. She would take her phone to the bathroom for 20-minute showers. She'd place it face down whenever I approached. She'd been increasingly irritable lately, snapping at trivial things, then apologizing with suspicious efficiency, like she was following a script to maintain normalcy. Every night she'd go to bed before me, claiming exhaustion. When I'd join her later, she'd already be asleep or would mumble about headaches if I tried to initiate intimacy. Yet I played my part perfectly. I made her breakfast on Saturdays. I brought home flowers on Tuesdays. I wanted her to believe I was still the same trusting husband, still in the dark. 7 agonizing days. Later, Jeff called. "Bill, I've run the tests twice to be certain," he said, his voice professionally detached. "Samples K2 and B3 are definitely siblings. They share the expected amount of genetic material, but," he paused, "neither of them shows any genetic relationship with sample M1, 0 paternal matches. I'm sorry, man." My world stopped spinning for a moment. Even though I'd expected this result, hearing it confirmed felt like being hit by a speeding truck. Yet somehow my voice remained steady. "Thank you, Jeff. You've been incredibly helpful. Bill, do you want to talk about—" "Not now. Maybe someday. I appreciate your discretion." That evening, I casually mentioned to Marie that a colleague was doing a genetics study and needed family samples. "He's looking at inherited traits across generations," I said, watching her face carefully. "He asked if our family would participate. Just simple cheek swabs from all of us." The glass of water in Marie's hand slipped crashing to the floor. Her face went ashen. She quickly bent to clean up the mess, but I'd already seen her panic. I don't think I'm comfortable with that, Bill," she stammered, forcing a weak smile. "It seems so invasive. Don't you think our DNA is very private?" "Sure, no problem," I replied casually. "I'll tell him we're not interested." But in my mind, the final piece had locked into place. Marie knew she had always known. The children weren't mine, and she had been living with this lie for years. That night, I sat alone in our den, staring at our wedding photo on the wall. We looked so happy, so in love. I had believed we were soulmates, that we had built something real and lasting. But while I was building, she had been hollowing everything out from the inside. The pain was excruciating, but it rapidly crystallized into something harder, colder. I wouldn't be like those pathetic husbands on TV dramas who sob and beg their cheating wives to reconsider. I wouldn't grant forgiveness or seek couples therapy. This betrayal went beyond repair. This wasn't a one-night mistake. This was 6 years of calculated deception. I began systematically setting traps. I read about surveillance techniques, data recovery, and digital forensics. I installed a keylogger on our shared laptop. I backed up her phone contents to my private cloud account while she showered. I placed a small camera inside our living room bookshelf, aimed at the sofa where Marie often sat to make evening calls. After a week of monitoring, patterns emerged. Nearly every night around 10 p.m. after I'd retreated to my home office to finish some work, Marie would receive a call from an unnamed contact. These calls typically lasted 30-40 minutes. She always sat in the darkest corner of the sofa, back to the room, speaking in hushed tones. I couldn't quite make out. I still didn't know who he was, but I was holding the first thread of this tangled mess. Pull this thread, and her entire web of lies would unravel. That night before going to bed, I checked the camera feed on my tablet. For the first time the audio was clear enough, I heard Marie laugh, a low, throaty sound. I hadn't heard from her in years. Then a man's voice, deep and smooth. "I miss your body." My fist clenched so hard my nails cut into my palm. Blood beaded in my hand as I listened to my wife's whispered response. "Soon, baby. Very soon." The game had begun. My opportunity came the following Saturday. Marie casually mentioned over breakfast that her parents had invited us to Salem for dinner. "Mom's making her famous pot roast," she said, wiping yogurt from Brian's chin. "Dad's been asking when we'd bring the kids over. We could stay the night if it gets late." I'd been waiting for something like this. "Sounds great," I replied, buttering my toast with deliberate calm. Just as we were packing the kids' overnight bags, I staged my escape. My phone rang a call. I'd scheduled myself using an app. Bill Carter. I answered, then feigned growing concern. "Wait, when did this happen?" "The entire client database." "Jesus." I looked apologetically at Marie. "I'm so sorry, honey. Critical security breach at work. They need me on site." Marie's face fell. "Today, can't someone else handle it?" "I'm the senior security engineer. It has to be me." I gave what I hoped was a regretful sigh. "You should still take the kids, though. No reason to disappoint your parents." She hesitated, clearly suspicious, but eventually relented. I helped load the kids into the car, kissed Katie's forehead tenderly, despite knowing she wasn't mine biologically, and waved as they pulled out of the driveway. The moment they disappeared around the corner, I went back inside. I had approximately 6 hours before they'd return. I needed to be methodical. First, I eliminated obvious search areas. The kitchen, living room, and any drawers or cabinets I regularly accessed. The bedroom closet was a possibility, but I'd been in there countless times over the years. If Marie was hiding something significant, she'd choose somewhere I rarely ventured. I focused on 2 primary locations. Her personal vanity drawer, where she kept lingerie and accessories, in the attic, our designated space for storing pre-marriage memorabilia, and rarely used items. In Marie's vanity, behind a stack of neatly folded cotton underwear, I discovered what I was looking for. 2 lingerie sets I'd never seen before. One black with intricate lace patterns, another deep red with leather straps. These weren't the modest, comfortable pieces Marie typically wore. These were overtly sexual, meant for someone else's eyes. They were hidden beneath an old bedsheet tucked away where she thought I'd never look. But the attic held the real treasure trove. Among dozens of dust-covered cardboard boxes, one medium-sized brown box stood out. While everything else was coated in a uniform layer of dust, this box showed signs of recent handling. Finger swipes through the dust, subtle drag marks on the floor. I brought it down and placed it on our dining room table. Inside, organized in chronological order, were dozens of handwritten letters, all from someone named Harry. The paper was yellow with age on the oldest ones, dating back to before we had children. Some were written on folded A4 paper, others on hotel stationery. The handwriting was bold, aggressive, all capital letters in either black or blue ink. I forced myself to read them systematically. Some contained explicit instructions. Wear the red dress. No underwear, storage room on 2nd floor. 6 p.m. Others were filled with degrading language. You're my personal whore, Marie. That idiot Bill doesn't deserve to touch you. The most recent letters made references to Katie and Brian. In one dated shortly after Brian's birth, this Harry wrote, 2 kids and I don't have to change a single diaper, or pay a cent. Some men are just born to be cuckolds. At the bottom of the box, beneath a velvet lining, I nearly missed. I found 2 unlabeled VHS tapes in black cases. My hands trembled as I carried them to the garage where we kept an old VCR player. I connected it to a small TV and recorded the screen with my phone to digitize the evidence. The first tape showed Marie and a tall, well-built man with silver hair in what appeared to be a hotel room. She wore the black lingerie set I'd just discovered in her drawer. I watched numb with shock as she performed a striptease, then knelt before him, begging for his approval in ways she'd never done with me. At one point, the man Harry said clearly, "She's my daughter and you know it," referring to Katie. The second tape was even worse. It was filmed in our bedroom, my bedroom, on our bed with our wedding picture visible on the nightstand. Marie wore the silk nightgown I'd given her for her birthday last year. She wrote him whispering, "This is so wrong, but I love it." I sat in the dark garage long after the tapes ended, my mind oddly clear. The shock had crystallized into something cold and hard. What hurt most wasn't the sex, it was the deliberate years-long deception, the calculated efforts to maintain two separate lives. She wasn't seduced or manipulated. I whispered to the empty room. She chose this. She chose to betray everything. I spent the next 2 hours meticulously preserving evidence. I scanned every letter at high resolution. I used video editing software to capture key moments from the tapes as time-stamped screenshots. I downloaded copies of the hidden camera footage showing Marie's late-night phone calls. I transferred everything to an encrypted external drive, then uploaded duplicate copies to 2 separate Google Drive accounts secured with different one-time passwords. Whatever happened next, the truth would be preserved. As I was reviewing the final section of the second tape, I heard Marie ask a question that made my blood turn to ice. "Do you ever feel guilty about Bill raising your children?" Harry's response, accompanied by a smirk, was clear. "No, Bill deserves it." In that moment, something fundamentally changed within me. This wasn't just about Marie's betrayal anymore. This Harry, whoever he was, had deliberately orchestrated my humiliation. He'd knowingly let me raise his children while mocking me behind my back. I quietly closed the laptop and sat in perfect stillness for several minutes. My pain had transformed into something else entirely, a cold, calculated resolve. Harry didn't know it yet, but he would pay for every word, every smirk, every moment he'd stolen from me, and so would Marie. For the next 2 weeks, I played the role of the oblivious husband perfectly. I brought Marie coffee in bed each morning. I suggested date nights. I even initiated intimacy, fighting through my revulsion by disconnecting my mind from my body. Each touch felt like acid on my skin, but I smiled through it all. Marie responded by becoming unusually affectionate. She started wearing the lingerie I'd found hidden in her drawer, the pieces meant for Harry's eyes. The black lace one appeared first, then the red strappy set, a few nights later. She'd run her hands through my hair, whisper things she thought I wanted to hear. I recognized this sudden interest for what it was. Marie sensed danger and was attempting to reestablish control, using the one tool she'd always relied on. "You seem different lately," she said one night as we lay in bed. "More confident, I like it." "Just appreciating what I have," I replied, kissing her forehead, while imagining the look on her face when her world collapsed. On a Tuesday evening, I called Marie into the living room. I'd set the stage carefully. 2 glasses of wine, soft music, the appearance of an intimate conversation. Something troubling happened at work today. I began keeping my voice gentle. One of the female engineers came to me crying. Apparently, her boss has been pressuring her for sexual favors in exchange for promotion. I paused, watching Marie's reaction closely. It's classic workplace harassment. Marie's hand tightened around her wine glass. "That's terrible," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. I told her she should file charges. The law protects employees from that kind of exploitation, especially when there's a power imbalance. I leaned forward. "If anyone ever tried to pressure you that way, honey, you'd have legal recourse." A flash of fear crossed her eyes, exactly what I'd been waiting for. Marie worked for a prestigious law firm. Harry must be someone with authority there. The pieces were falling into place. "I know who Harry is," I said softly. Marie's wineglass shattered on the hardwood floor. Red liquid splashed across her white blouse like blood. "I don't know what you're—" "Harry Dorner, senior partner at Harriman and Pierce, your boss for the past 8 years. I kept my voice conversational. Call him. Tell him you need to discuss fundraising for the children's hospital event. Ask him to come here tonight. Bill, you're confused. If he doesn't come, Caroline gets the videos tomorrow morning." I pulled out my phone, showing her the contact information for Harry's wife I'd obtained. His children, too. They're in college now, right? Princeton and Yale. Marie collapsed onto the sofa, trembling. "Harry's home with his family. He can't just— Then he'd better make an excuse 9 o'clock. Here." I stood up. "And Marie, don't warn him. I'll know if you do." At 9:07 p.m., Harry Dorner's Mercedes pulled into our driveway. I watched through the window as he straightened his tie, his arrogant posture suggesting he'd prepared some explanation to handle whatever domestic dispute he thought he was walking into. I led them both to my home office where I'd set up a projector. Harry sat with his legs crossed, looking irritated but composed. Marie perched on the edge of her chair, fingers fidgeting with her wedding ring. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Dorner," I said, clicking the remote. The projector hummed to life. The first slide appeared. Marie naked on his lap in that hotel room. The timestamp clearly visible. "What the hell is this?" Harry stood up, face contorting with rage. I clicked to the next slide. Marie in our bed with Harry. Then audio began playing Marie's voice. "Bill's just an ATM machine. He has no idea." Harry's voice followed. "I've never even had to buy diapers for them. Bill takes care of everything." Both of them sat frozen color draining from their faces. "This is just a sampling," I said calmly. "I have 6 years' worth of evidence. Letters, videos, phone conversations, text messages. I placed 4 legal documents on the desk. These require your signatures." I slid the first document toward Harry. "This acknowledges you are the biological father of Catherine and Brian Carter and obligates you to pay $10,000 per year per child until they turn 21 plus $100,000 each for college." The second document, "This terminates all parental rights and forbids you from any contact with the children." The third, "This grants me full legal adoption rights." The fourth, "This is a notarized admission of sexual harassment in the workplace describing how you leveraged your position as partner to coerce my wife into a sexual relationship." I leaned back in my chair. "You have 48 hours to sign all 4. If you refuse these videos, go to Caroline, to your children, to the managing partners at your firm, to the Oregon Bar Association, to the local news." "You're insane," Harry sputtered. "You can't prove." I played another clip, the one where he explicitly acknowledged fathering my children. "This is blackmail," he said, voice shaking. "No, Harry. This is justice." Marie sat silently, weeping, mascara running down her cheeks. "And you?" I turned to her, tossing a sexual harassment complaint form on the table. "Sign it." Her hand trembled so badly she could barely hold the pen, but she signed. Harry watched her, then slumped in his chair, defeated. One by one, he signed all 4 documents. "Very good," I said, gathering the papers. "Now a few ground rules. First, if anything happens to me, anything suspicious or unexpected, these files automatically go to 4 different email addresses. Second, any violation of these agreements means full public disclosure." I looked Harry directly in the eyes. "And third, you will continue to act normally at work. No retaliation against Marie. No sudden departures." Harry nodded mutely, his former arrogance extinguished. Marie looked up at me through tear-stained eyes. "Are you going to divorce me?" she whispered. I smiled. Not the warm smile she was accustomed to, but something new, something that made her shrink back in her seat. "No, Marie, but from now on we play by my rules." After Harry left, Marie collapsed on our living room floor, sobbing uncontrollably. She crawled toward me on her knees, clutching at my legs. "Bill, please, I'll do anything. I'm so sorry. I was weak. I was stupid." I gently stroked her hair, feeling nothing but cold satisfaction as she pressed her tear-stained face against my hand. "Welcome to the rest of your life, Marie," I whispered, "where betrayal has its own special price." 3 months after my confrontation with Harry and Marie, something unexpected happened. Marie received a prestigious appointment as chairwoman of the Key Foundation, Oregon's largest charitable organization. The position was highly coveted in Portland's social circles. It came with significant influence connections to state politicians and a substantial public profile. Initially, I considered blocking it. One call to the board with my evidence would have torpedoed her candidacy instantly. But as I watched her excitement grow, a more elaborate plan formed in my mind. This wasn't just an appointment. It was an opportunity. A stage perfectly set for a public reckoning. "I'm so proud of you," I told her, embracing her with practiced warmth. "This is the recognition you deserve." Relief washed over her face. Since our confrontation, Marie had been walking on eggshells, desperately trying to rebuild my trust. She'd been the perfect wife, attentive, submissive, constantly seeking approval. My apparent support for her new role seemed to signal the beginning of forgiveness. "Will you help me prepare my acceptance speech?" she asked tentatively. "You've always been better with presentations than me." "Of course, honey, I'll handle everything." For 2 weeks, I played the supportive husband impeccably. I helped her draft a compelling speech highlighting her vision for the foundation. I designed a PowerPoint presentation featuring photos of her volunteer work and graphs illustrating the foundation's financial goals. I even accompanied her to the venue the day before to check the audiovisual setup, adjust the lighting, and test the microphone. "Everything looks perfect," I assured her. "You're going to knock them dead tomorrow." What Marie didn't know was that I had created an alternate PowerPoint file. The first 6 slides matched the original photos of Marie at charity events, financial projections, mission statements. But beginning with slide 7, I'd inserted still images from the VHS tapes. Explicit shots of Marie with Harry in compromising positions, each with visible timestamps. The final slides contained audio clips of Marie mocking me, calling me an ATM machine, and Harry boasting about having me raise his children. I'd embedded code in the presentation that would prevent it from being stopped once it began. No escape key, no mouse click, no unplugging the laptop would work. Only a specific keyboard combination, Ctrl+Alt+8, would terminate it. I ran a full test at home with the innocent version to give Marie confidence that everything worked flawlessly. The day of the ceremony, I made one final preparation. I contacted Caroline Dorner, explaining that the Key Foundation wanted to honor her philanthropic contributions. She was surprised but pleased by the invitation, unaware that her husband would also be attending in his capacity as a major donor. I also arranged for a videographer from the local newspaper to record the historic appointment ceremony for their website. That evening, the ballroom of the Portland Hilton was filled with Oregon's elite state officials, wealthy donors, media representatives, foundation members, and Marie's extended family. Harry sat in the back row, maintaining the professional distance we'd agreed upon. Caroline was seated near the front, still unaware of her husband's presence. I'd sent my attorney a secure file with copies of all evidence and a note: "Initiate divorce proceedings immediately after tonight's event." At 7:30 p.m. sharp, Marie stepped onto the stage in a sleek black dress, her smile radiant with confidence. She welcomed everyone warmly, beginning her carefully rehearsed speech as the first slides appeared behind her. The crowd was attentive, silent, except for occasional polite applause. Slide 1, slide 2, slide 3. Everything proceeded normally. Then slide 7 appeared. Marie naked on Harry's lap in a hotel room, the bed visible in the background. The room fell silent. For a moment, no one seemed to comprehend what they were seeing. Then a wave of whispers began rippling through the audience, growing louder with each passing second. Marie, unaware of what was happening behind her, faltered mid-sentence as she noticed the changed expressions in the audience. She turned slowly to look at the screen, her water glass slipping from her fingers and shattering on the podium. Her face drained of all color. She lunged for the laptop, frantically pressing keys to stop the presentation. Nothing worked. The slides continued advancing automatically, each more explicit than the last. Then came the audio. Marie's voice crystal clear. "As long as I throw Bill a bone once in a while, he never suspects anything." Harry's voice. "Does it bother you that he's raising my kids?" Marie again. "I can't believe how easily Bill has been fooled for 6 years." A harsh laugh erupted from the back of the ballroom. Caroline Dorner stood up, eyes locked on Harry. In one fluid motion, she grabbed a crystal flower vase from the table and hurled it directly at him, missing his head by inches. "You disgusting pieces of garbage," she screamed. "Don't ever expect to see me or the kids again." She stormed out, shoving aside a waiter who tried to calm her. By now, the presentation had reached its end. Marie stood frozen on stage, tears streaming down her face, unable to move or speak. The room was in chaos, some guests rushing for the exits, others staring in horrified fascination, several filming with their phones. I calmly walked up to the stage, carrying a manila envelope containing divorce papers. Taking the microphone, I spoke quietly but clearly. "This is my wife who promised to be faithful. till death do us part. Now you've seen her having sex with her boss in our bedroom, in our marital bed. The remaining audience members gasped. Marie's parents huddled together in shock. Her mother openly weeping. The foundation board might want to reconsider their appointment. I added, placing the divorce papers on the podium. A leader should have integrity. I stepped back as security personnel rushed forward, attempting to restore order and clear the room. Reporters were already on their phones, undoubtedly calling in the biggest scandal to hit Portland's high society. In decades, Marie finally collapsed to her knees on the stage, sobbing uncontrollably. I leaned down close to her ear, my voice for her alone. The price for 6 years of lies, I whispered, has only just begun. The morning after Marie's public humiliation, I met with my attorney to finalize our strategy. By noon, I had filed for divorce, attaching all evidence, the videos, photographs, letters, and Harry's signed paternity acknowledgement. The judge assigned to our case reviewed the materials and fast-tracked the proceedings. Something almost unheard of in family court. With evidence this compelling, Mr. Carter, the court sees no benefit in prolonging matters, my attorney explained, surprised by the rapid response. They're scheduling the first hearing next week. Meanwhile, my lawyer sent a formal ethics complaint to the Key Foundation Board, including selected evidence that didn't cross into explicit territory, but clearly demonstrated Marie's misconduct. By the end of the day, she had received official notification of her permanent removal from all foundation activities. The custody battle was even more decisive. The court appointed a child psychologist to evaluate the situation, who ultimately recommended I receive full legal custody. The respondent has demonstrated a pattern of deception that raises serious concerns about her judgment and moral fitness as a parent. Read the custody ruling. Mr. Carter has shown remarkable stability and dedication to the children's welfare, despite extraordinary personal circumstances. Marie was granted limited visitation rights twice monthly, supervised and contingent on her completing therapy. She couldn't contest the ruling effectively. After losing her position at the law firm following the scandal, she had no stable income or housing to offer the children. Harry's financial promises remained in place, legally enforced by the court, ensuring Katie and Brian would have their education funded regardless of my relationship with Marie. Caroline Dorner moved with surgical precision. 1 week after the foundation event, she filed for divorce, using copies of the evidence I'd gathered. Harry's position at the firm became untenable. The partners asked for his resignation to avoid further scandal. His professional reputation was destroyed. The court froze his assets pending divorce settlement, with Caroline's attorney successfully arguing that he had attempted to hide significant funds. 3 months after my divorce was finalized, Marie appeared at my door one evening. I barely recognized her hair. Unwashed face, gaunt without makeup, wearing an old coat I remembered from our early marriage years. "Bill," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I've lost everything. My job, my reputation, my family. I just want to see the kids. Please." I looked at her, feeling neither satisfaction nor anger, only a profound emotional emptiness where love had once lived. "You can see them according to the court schedule," I replied evenly. First and third Saturdays, 10 to 4, with Ms. Randall present. I started to close the door, then paused. "And Marie, don't ever try to win me back. I lived the illusion long enough." While my relationship with Marie had crumbled into dust, something unexpected had blossomed elsewhere. Denise Reynolds, who ran the IT security team in our company's Seattle office, had been my confidant throughout the ordeal. We'd met at company retreats years earlier, but reconnected when I needed expertise on digital evidence preservation. Unlike others who approached me with morbid curiosity or unwanted pity, after my story became public, Denise offered something rare: understanding without judgment. She listened when I needed to talk and respected my silence when I didn't. Most importantly, she was wonderful with Katie and Brian, approaching them with natural warmth that never felt forced. "Dinosaurs don't like carrots," she told Brian one afternoon when he refused to eat his vegetables. "That's why they all went extinct." "Do you want to go extinct too?" Brian had laughed and eaten every carrot on his plate. 6 months after my divorce, I moved in with Denise. We bought a house midway between Portland and Seattle, allowing me to maintain my children's school routine while accommodating her career. Katie quickly grew attached to her, eventually creating her own nickname, Mama D. "Is that okay?" I asked Denise one night after hearing Katie use the term, more than okay. She answered, eyes glistening, "It's perfect." One autumn evening, a year later, we took the children to a neighborhood park. Brian had fallen asleep on the bench beside me. Exhausted from chasing squirrels, Katie was testing her courage on the playground slide with Denise spotting her from below. Golden sunset light bathed everything in a warm glow. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the archived folder containing the last remaining photos of Marie. With a few taps, I permanently deleted them all. The digital record of my previous life disappeared into the ether. Finally free. Denise asked, noticing my action as she sat beside me. "Freedom isn't about forgetting," I said quietly, watching Katie's delighted face as she slid down again. "It's about not needing to remember anymore." Marie eventually moved to Boise, living alone in a small apartment, working retail jobs isolated from friends and family. Harry was forced to relocate to Nevada after the divorce, his legal career in shambles, paying substantial alimony to Caroline and child support to me. As for me, I found something I never expected, not a perfect life, but an authentic one. Some nights I still woke up questioning how I'd missed the signs for so long, but those moments grew increasingly rare. Katie and Brian still called me Dad, and I loved them more fiercely than anything in this world. Blood might determine biology, but I had learned firsthand that love, real love, determines family.